And welcome back, spooky friends. Welcome to That Spooky Life. I'm your host, Miranda, and I am very happy that you are here with me today. So I know this episode is going to be posting the Friday before Yule, and there are many holidays to celebrate in December. So I would like to wish you a happy holidays. And by the time I talk to you again, Christmas will be over, etc. So whatever you celebrate, I hope you are having a wonderful month, and I hope that any holiday for you this year is wonderful, filled with love, joy, friends, family, things that make you feel warm, comfortable, accepted, and loved, and it is stress-free and a wonderful time. Today, I would like to start out giving a shout out to a newer listener who has made an unexpected impact on this lovely podcast that we share. It was recently shared with me that upon arriving here in Spookyville, a friend of a friend had some trepidation when it came to the subject of witchcraft. However, after joining our spooky little family and hearing my perspectives and approach, has found that trepidation lifting and is actually interested to know more about it now. I am entirely over the moon. There are so many cultural and historical misconceptions about witches, witchcraft, hoodoo, numerous traditions, the practice just as an umbrella. What is, what is not witchcraft, and, quote, what you do with it. Like, fam, I practice to protect my house, myself, my family from the bullshit in the world and help me live my life without going completely loony, while actively trying to make the world a better place one day, person, or act at a time. There are obviously finer intricacies than that, but if I had to sum it up, that's really the baseline of it. And most all of the witches that I know who claim that title, regardless of their path or tradition or study, are basically all on the same page when it comes to that. So, I would like to shout out and dedicate this episode to Kathy. Thank you for listening with an open mind and an open heart, fam, and welcome to the spooky side of life. It's nice here. We have pie. I was also told that there's an interest in hearing about different kinds of spirits. So if you are new to the spirit world, yes, there are different kinds. Some believe the great myriad are different sources, different ineffable constructs, and believe that while there are different classifications, they all come from the same source. But most agree that ghosts, intelligent, residual, etc., and spirits with a capital S, as in something that was never human, are two different things sort of coexisting in the subtle reality. So whether you believe spirits are of a more fae-type nature, or all born of the land, or all born from a different dimension, I'm not really sure it matters, for purposes of this discussion at least. We all acknowledge that there's more than we see, and that there are spirits that exist that were never human. So regardless of what your personal take on it and your personal practice or belief is, we can at least all agree there are spirits that exist that are not ghosts and that were never human. So, there's no way, no reasonable way, I should say, to try and list or classify everything. It's a mind-boggling thing, really, to consider, let alone attempt, and ain't nobody got time for that. But what I will do is share an experience today that I had with something that I know was never human. It was a very sort of upsetting experience for me at the time, and a solid learning experience, I will tell you that. There is a very large, very old and historic graveyard in the town that I am from called Myrtle Hill, and it is a beautiful, quiet place where I used to go in between shifts or waiting on somebody to come pick me up from downtown when I didn't have a car, or waiting on my mom to get off work, etc. And I would draw, or I would read a book, or I would write, typically poetry or short stories or something like that. Graveyards are super quiet for me most of the time. And, there's not a lot of people there. There's not a lot of traffic. You climb halfway up a hill, even if you're in the middle of downtown, you get a nice view, and people aren't typically going to mess with you. So this was a habit of mine because it was just within a few blocks of where I worked, and I could just walk down there, take like, a 40-minute breather, do some reading, do some drawing, whatever, chill out. And then if I had a second shift or something, walk right back up and I would be refreshed and ready to go. And I did this numerous times. Like there was a particular place that I used to go. It was an old staircase. And I remember one of the graves that I would sit next to was Mammy B and her husband, and that staircase sat right next to them. And there were times that I would just have little conversations with them and say I hoped that they had, found whatever great reward and all of that. They seemed like real nice folks. There were impressions. There was no actual intelligent hauntings there. They were at peace. In fact, I'm pretty sure they were even back as sort of like ancestor spirits. It was always a really positive area. And I always asked permission, can I sit with y'all today? Things like that. Very respectful. And one day in particular, I didn't want to sit anymore because it was cold, but I didn't exactly want to go ahead and go back to work. So I went over the hill and down, which kind of constitutes the long way. And for a second, I had an inspiration of a poem. So I sat down on a different staircase that wasn't actually near any graves. And I scribbled it out really fast. And then I noticed I got that weird tingling sensation on my back. And I noticed that something was watching me. And so I was like, okay, well, let me close my eyes and see what's going on. There's no people around. It wasn't a person watching me. There was no cars in the parking lot, and I actively looked around. The graveyard borderlines on a not so great part of town that they were fixing up at the time, but it still wasn't quite there yet. And so I always was very careful, very observant, and there was no physical person around me. So I closed my eyes and I sort of tuned in to see what I could find. And there was this, well, to me at the time, I'll tell you what my filters saw. It was a humanoid shape in the anthropomorphic idea of head, 2 arms, 2 legs. But that's where sort of the likeness stops. It was sort of like a Slender Man shape kind of thing. It was tall, it was thin. The extremities were too long, the fingers were too long, the legs were too long. The head was very tall and narrow and sort of ovular, thin kind of thing. And it seemed to be made of sort of a gray, staticky cloud that had blue and purple energy with it. And I was like, the hell is that? It was not a ghost. I knew that instantly. I knew that it was not a ghost. It didn't give off a get the hell out vibe or anything like that. It gave off a very curious vibe. I was like, well, maybe it's a guardian of the graveyard. I don't know. So I sort of focused on it for a second, and I started crying. I got so sad so instantly, and I was like, oh, okay. It's some sort of spirit of sorrow. I was honestly freaked out. I wasn't as reactionary as I normally was. Historically, when I would notice things so vividly like that, it would be very nope and just right out there because I didn't know what to do with them. Even with all of the stuff that I did know, it was mostly protective charms and things like that, and I would just do it long enough to get away because it terrified me. So in that particular instance, I was like, okay, so I'm not sure why you're curious. I'm not doing anything. I'm being very respectful. I love this place. I'm a go, and you have a good day. So I left, and I went back to work, and I worked all that night, and I closed that night, and the money was good. And my husband came and got me after work, and at that point we were, I believe, married. If not, it was real close to when we got married. So it was somewhere, we were at least engaged at that point. So came and got me, went home. At the time, we lived with another roommate, and we all, had dinner, watched TV or something, played video games before we went to bed. We all turn in for the night to get ready for work in the morning, and lights out, and I sleep like a rock because I worked all day. Then I come awake into this dream, and at that point, I had been living out of my childhood home for probably 6 or 7 years, and I had not been back or anything like that. And in the dream, I walk into the front door of my childhood home to be greeted by my mother, to be greeted by a friend who worked on the same block that I did, but at a different establishment. And we are in my childhood home as I remember it, and there's some sort of like wake going on, like somebody had died. And everybody's coming up to me and saying, I'm so sorry, and all this stuff. And then one of my best friends at the time, who worked up the street a little ways, it was all of the people that I'd seen sort of on Broad Street on a regular basis kind of thing. And they're all coming up to me and crying and they're upset. And then like nobody else there I know. Like for some reason, it's a bunch of people that I don't know, except for my husband's parents. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I realized suddenly there wasn't anything visual in the dream. There was no cue. There was no like pictures or casket or anything like that. I walk into what was once my grandmother's living room on her side of the house, and I realized that this is my husband's funeral. And it hits me like a fucking 5-ton truck. And all of a sudden, I went out of the dream. I'm lucid enough that I realize it's a dream to a degree, but the dream is pulling me into it and making me believe that it's not. And I'm like wavering in and out of, no, this is a dream. I have to wake up. No, oh my God, he's gone. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I've never felt such like a soul-rending sorrow till finally I was able to wake myself up because I've been struggling so hard. I was like, there's no way that these like 4 or 5 people would be the only ones I know with all of these other strangers here. Why am I in my grandmother's living room? Why am I in my childhood house? This doesn't make any sense. This is a dream. This is a dream. So I finally wake myself up. But lucky me, I wake up to sleep paralysis or hypnagogia, or if you're a Stephen King fan, I was in a state of toadash. My eyes open and I'm very, very aware that I'm awake. Like I'm hyper aware that I'm awake because I know what I was just very vividly dreaming. And this was a whoosh, like whiplash. I am awake. I know where I am. What time is it? And I go to turn my head to look at my alarm clock and I can't move. But my eyes go over and to the side of my bed, that same figure from the graveyard was standing over me. And I start panicking, like nostrils flared, heavy breathing because I can't move. And I had not remembered. I realize now in retrospect that I have experienced sleep paralysis numerous times in my life, but I didn't know what it was. And usually it would only last for a minute or two and then I could like be awake and okay. This was the first time that it lasted impressively long. So it's bending over me, looking down at me with that same sense of curiosity. There was no real malice. Like, I did not feel malice or anything like that. It was just this alien sense of curiosity that it didn't understand. It didn't understand me, and it felt compelled to understand me. And it reached out and it touched my face, and it was the strangest sensation, because if you reach up and just like very lightly touch your own face, it was like that. Except it caused the, like, you know, when your foot's asleep and you touch it, it causes the pins and needles and the bees stinging, because I was in sleep paralysis. And it really seriously felt like a physical touch, but it wasn't one of those like it blossomed on my face. It was seriously like the touch and then it went away, like somebody was physically touching me. It's very strange. And I was struggling with all of my willpower to move, to do something. And finally, my elbow twitched into my sleeping husband's back. And the minute he woke up, the figure stood up and vanished. And then I was able to say something and started freaking out. And I was saying, there's something in the house. There's something in the house. It touched my face. There's something in the house. So this, of course, also wakes up the roommate, because I'm not even going to remotely lie, friends. I was 1/2 step shy of hysterical, because it was the most upsetting thing to have such a vivid dream that I had to fight to maintain that I was not, this was not reality. I was dreaming. I was still feeling the impact, the emotional impact from that. Woke up to this shit happening, could not move. And then I'm trying to explain what happened and what I saw, to the point that, you know, obviously my husband thought I was dreaming. He was, you know, it's like sleep paralysis, you see things, etc. But my roommate, props to this motherfucker, and you know who you are, got out his fucking baseball bat and checked all the closets, the bathrooms, the living room, everything and went outside and walked around our fucking duplex and back towards the woods to make sure that there was not anybody in the house and not anybody fucking with us. Props to you, sir. I will never forget that. After the sweep and clear of the house is done, my husband got me something to drink and was like, it was a dream. What happened? I told him about the dream and I started blubbering all over again. But by that point I was exhausted, so he was able to calm me down and we went back to sleep. Well, it wasn't until the next day when I was telling a coworker of mine about what happened that I had the epiphany and talked to them about it, because they were like, oh my God, that's exactly it. In the fact that that spirit I recognized almost instantly as a spirit of sorrow or a spirit of despair. How it came into being, it could be numerous things, you know. It could be that this spirit that wanders Myrtle Hill was created from all the sadness and despair that people bring, intending to leave it there. You know, if you think about it, graveyards, just like funerals, aren't for the dead. They're for us. They're so that we can go when we're feeling sad, missing someone, and visit them. And then leave feeling a little bit better, hopefully, than when we come. You know, that's an expenditure of energy. Just like when you go to the club because you had a frustrating week and you want to dance that away. You want to get rid of that negative energy, to expend it and be free of those vibes. You know, nobody wants to be sad. So when we miss someone who has passed, we go to expend that energy at a graveyard. But energy doesn't just stop. It goes somewhere. It's not surprising to think that after so long that it would gain enough, gravity, energy to evolve sentience. And, you know, to be honest, I wasn't nearly as discerning a witch or a medium at the time. You know, remember, I spent most of my life trying not to see things. Maybe it was a guardian of the graveyard. I'm not sure if it was the guardian of it. Most have a larger spirit that protects sacred places like that, if they have them. But, you know, it may have been. I'm honestly not sure. Either way, I know that the spirit was never human. And once it had made me feel sorrow, once it figured out what my sorrow or despair was, that I could feel it, like what makes you sad. Once it figured that out, it was gone. My mistake that day, despite me being respectful and acknowledging and going on, was that my ass didn't walk out of that graveyard backwards. That, friends, is why you walk out of a graveyard backwards, because it's not the spirits of the dead necessarily that are going to follow you home. There's more there. There's more in this world. There is more in nature and the unseen reality than just the dead. Walk out of a graveyard backwards so that nothing can follow you home. And that is my spooky story for the week. So our listener story today comes from actually two very awesome people. One being the actual person whom the story is for, that is like an adopted older sister to me who I love and missed very dearly, named Shannon. And huge shout out to my friend Diana, who is the wonderful author that I have goobed about numerous times. She actually got in a call with Shannon and transcribed this story because of timing things and stuff like that. Shannon didn't have a chance to write it up. And I was super busy, and she was able to get me an actual text version of this so I can read it to you guys. So this is Shannon's story, and Diana was awesome enough to transcribe it for me, so thank you both. I have not read this in full yet. I've read part of it and decided to go ahead and just include it so that my reactions will be fresh with you, the listener, other than obviously Shannon and Diana. But I'm excited. So, Shannon writes, my father passed away in September of 2014. Before his death, he and my mom were living in this cute little apartment that had been converted from a barn. In order to get to it, you had to turn onto a road that was kind of hidden and go through an area that was heavily wooded with lots of trees, bushes, and shrubbery. Ooh, that sounds real nice. That sounds like a place I would like to visit. That spring, I was leaving my mom's apartment. During our visit, we'd been talking about him a lot and missing him. I was with my kids as well. So we were driving out of that wooded area and my kids saw some deer. My kids, excited as they were, asked me repeatedly to stop the car. So I stopped and we rolled down the windows so that my kids could watch the deer. I sat there watching my kids, and I saw something out in the woods. There were all of these leaves and trees and bushes in this area. I mean, like a sea of leaves. And I thought I saw another deer or something, but then I realized it was Dad. I have chills all over my body right now. It wasn't like I saw a white or silvery Scooby-Doo ghost or anything like that. This figure didn't look like a full person either. It wasn't solid. It was almost like his shadow or a silhouette, like his form was made of leaves. It was his distinct shape, and unquestionably my dad. I recognized the shape of his body and his posture, the way he sort of leaned over near the end of his life because he wasn't well. This figure that I knew was definitely my dad moved through the trees with his exact gait, the way that he walked. I watched this ghost of my dad made of leaves walk off into the forest until I couldn't see it anymore. I shared this experience with some people I knew. They tried to convince me it was just an optical illusion or a trick of the mind or whatever. Perhaps I could have believed that had it only lasted a split second. But I saw this for a good 5 to 10 seconds as I watched him walk. This also wasn't a scary experience. It was actually comforting. Like his way of saying that he knew we missed him and that he was still watching over us. When I shared this experience with my mom, she said she was a little jealous that she didn't get to see this as well. But she hasn't really been susceptible to the spirit world or believing. I have always been a believer and open. I've always been drawn to haunted locations like museums and such. Still, this experience gave me comfort in knowing that he is here in his own way and he is watching. Oh my goodness, I think like all the hair on my arms is standing up, but it's not like a bad thing. This is a wonderful story. Like, wow, I never knew that. I remember because we were in contact in 2014. I remember when that happened, and my heart broke for you because I know that you were very much Daddy's little girl, and I believe I got to meet him many moons ago, when there was vanilla and fruit punch balls involved, and you know what I mean. I want to say that he made it, but I don't remember for sure. I would need to talk to you about that because that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I remember thinking that the world had lost somebody really awesome. And I am glad with this story that he is still able to watch over that which he loved. Because I know that he and your mom loved each other very much and that they love you and that you love them, because I always think of it as Shannon and her mom and dad. So thank you for sharing this with me. This is a wonderful, wonderful story. And though I have chills, I also have the warm and fuzzies. And if you see him again, tell him I also said thank you for giving me an awesome big sister. So that is our listener story for the week. And I thank you, Shannon, for submitting this and Diana for transcribing it. And I look forward to any other stories you would like to share in the future. So my closing witchy wisdom today was actually inspired by my day today. I had a case of the Mondays on a Tuesday. And while I'm not going to go into detail because I will probably have a fuller version of the story for you guys later, I have a friend and listener who is dealing with some pretty intense stuff at their house right now. I'm still learning the story and what's going on entirely, but the big D word has been dropped, as in demons. And while that means different things to different people, obviously, this one apparently has the flavor of the very biblical Old Testament style Zach Baggins would have, an early Christmas and take a camera crew style craziness that is happening. So I'm going to be putting together a little witchy care package for a friend and seeing how I can get it to them, this may be the first that they're hearing about it. Surprise! But in some of these conversations, something else had come up that was about obsidian and specifically snowflake obsidian. Well, today when I was looking at things, doing some Yuletime witchy shopping, I actually went to a lovely store that is kind of close to where I live. It's about a 30-minute drive. It's called Forever in a Day, and they have the most lovely staff. Every time I've been in there, if it's the same people or if it's different people, they have been charming, polite, helpful without being pushy, knowledgeable, and today I met the most charming young man who was sweet and super knowledgeable. Like, he knew what he was talking about. He was pleased I knew what I was talking about. We came up with alternatives for tar water and all of this crazy stuff. I'm allergic to pine, by the way. So I had just a wonderful experience with all of the lovely people that I met today, and they are super supportive of the spiritual, metaphysical, and witchy community, and I wanted to give them a shout out for that because I adore them. We talked about my podcast today, so maybe they're listening, and I love you guys. You're amazing. You know who you are. If you're tuning into this podcast, you know who I am. I adore you guys, so thank you. But I was looking at the snowflake obsidian and remembered that there had been a question that came up about it and what it was for. Typically, obsidian is very good for neutralizing negative energy. I have a chunk of it that sits in the corner in my house, and different types of obsidian have slightly different sort of spins on the original, as it were, like a remix. Particularly at Forever in a Day, the little write-up that they had next to their snowflake obsidian is a stone of purity, which is what I'm talking about, purifying the negative energy, etc. Providing balance for the body, mind, and spirit. Helps you to recognize and release, quote, wrong thinking and stressful mental patterns. Treats veins, skeleton, and improves circulation. Empowerment. For every ending, there is a new beginning. It is apparently aligned with damn near all the chakras. Root, causal, crown, heart, solar plexus. Let's see, root, causal, crown, heart, solar plexus. Okay, so the throat. It's not aligned with the throat. That's like the only one. Astrological sign is apparently Virgo and vibrates to the number 8. So their little information card said. Me and grounding stones and some of the dark stones don't necessarily vibe as well sometimes, but I have a snowflake obsidian pendant of my own that I'm planning on doing some work with because the breaking of stressful mental patterns for someone who has anxiety sounds literally magical. Like, #witchcraft, let's really do this, but I'm going to start doing that, and I will update you guys and let you know. For somebody who's out there, I know you guys had the question, cough, cough. I believe it was Diana, cough, cough. There's your answer, at least as far as the wonderful people at Forever in a Day have it. And I'll let you know what my personal experience is since I haven't worked with obsidian in a really long time. So, yeah, there's my witchy wisdom for the day. I would like to thank you guys for joining me, and again say that I hope you have a stress-free and wonderful holiday regardless of what you celebrate. If you have a listener story that you would like to send in, I would love for you to. I know some people say, oh, I'm worried it'll be too long, or I'm worried it won't be long enough. I will work with what you send me. I am happy to just have them. I am happy that you guys are willing to send them. I am happy that people want to listen to my crazy experiences and send in their own. You guys are amazing, and I absolutely adore doing this podcast. I'm so glad that I got talked into started doing this. I'm so happy about it. But if you have a story that you would like to send in, please send it to ThatSpookyLifePodcast@gmail.com. Also, feel free and in fact be encouraged to follow me on Instagram. It is @ThatSpookyLifePodcast. I like to post little quotes and fun things now and then, memes and occasional updates and motivational stuff and advice, just whatever I'm feeling on that day. I also link the episodes and stuff like that. It's mostly fun times for me to play around and be witchy on the internet, and I have been having a blast, so you should totally come join me. So yeah, it looks like I can't believe we're actually 10 episodes in. Thank you for still being here. I'm over the moon and excited and pleased and just thankful to have you. And the next time we talk, the Christmas shenanigans will be over and we'll be heading towards the New Year's. And then one after that, it will be 2020. Like, and there's only one more episode for the year. That's crazy. I can't believe 2019 is almost over. All right. Well, I'm rambling at this point, and I will wrap it up here. I look forward to seeing you guys next week and sharing another set of Tales from the Spooky Side. Thank you to everyone who has submitted stories and everyone who is listening. I adore you all. And until next week, keep living that spooky life. Bye.